I'm Jess.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is Beyond the Shelves. Hello. Welcome back to Beyond the Shelves. Today, Sarah and I are going to be talking about the best of 2024. We're going to get into everyone else's list. We're going to talk a little bit about our list. We won't give you every book we love, but we'll give you a taste. We're going to talk about what you, the patrons, loved this year. So it's just an all-around best of 2024. But before we get started, what is happening at the library in December, Sarah?
Ooh, the big thing that's happening this year, or this month, to end the year.
I think we're all there.
Is that Des Moines native author and illustrator Don Tate is going to be at the Forest Avenue Library on Thursday, December 12th at 6:30. And he's going to be in the children's area. And so don't miss that out. Another great author. We've had a ton of great authors this year. And so he's going to end the year with us. So that is the big thing that's happening. The other things to remember as we close out the year is that the libraries are closed December 24th and 25th. And then we close at 5 on the 31st. And we are closed January 1st for the new year. So keep those in mind as well as you're making your way to the library.
Love it.
All right. But before we get into the best of the year, Jess, what are you reading right now?
You know, I don't know what I'm reading right now. I'm kidding. I just finished a book, and I haven't picked up my next one yet. Like, I legit just finished it like a day or two ago, which is a backlist book, a way backlist book, and that is The Vegetarian by Han Kang.
Oh, yeah, that's backlist.
Just got the Nobel Prize for Literature, and I was like, wow, this has been my TBR for ever, so I might as well pick it up. There was an available copy, so I just decided to read it, and I did really, really like it. It is a little shocking to me that it was very popular at the time it was published, because it is subversive. I don't know if that's the right word, but it is straight. It's like it's my type of book. Yeah, it's my type of book. But like it was really, really good. It had a lot of commentary. I love a translation. It's translated from Korean. I love it had a lot of commentary on like women's lives and women's bodies and like the domestic and how we are put in these boxes that we sometimes are unable to get out of. So it was a great read. I really enjoyed it. I will definitely, it's the only one I've read by her, and I will certainly seek out some more. But I have no idea what I'm going to read next. I just finished an audiobook too, but like this was more like a week ago, and I've just been on the struggle bus to find another audiobook to listen to. But while I was traveling, not for the Thanksgiving holiday, but even before that, I was traveling and I started listening to Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake, and then I read it, the last half of it when I got home. I just listened to it while I was driving and then read the last half when I got home because I had it checked out, and it did not disappoint. It was everything I love about Ashley Herring Blake's novels. I love her characters. I love her tropes. It was cute. It was funny. It was one of the reviews that I like just laughed so much on Goodreads was like, this is just pretty unrealistic. And I'm like, do you read have you read romance? Like, yes, of course. Like, this thing is never would happen in real life.
And it's a holiday romance on top of that.
Like, so yes, like, it's just the magic. It was great though.
Just enjoy yourselves, critics.
There was one character I didn't love, but for the most part, like if you like holiday romances, if you like Ashley Herring Blake, if you like the Bright Falls series, I think you would like Make the Season Bright, so I would check it out. But I just don't know what to listen to next. I picked up. Yeah, like have you been starting? Things. I picked up a book called Focus it's a nonfiction book about like regaining your focus back.
And then you put it down.
I put it down. I started listening to Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner, and I just kind of couldn't fully get into it. That's a soft DNF for me. Like, that's not a hard DNF. I will come back to it. I just started listening to Clean. I don't have the author's name, but we'll put it in the show notes. It is a translation as well. It's just kind of like slowly been popping up. I'd never seen it before about a maid who just is telling the story of a crime that happened in her home. So but nothing is really working yet. So we'll see. You know, what are you reading?
So I'm the opposite. I finally picked up I've had multiple good books.
That's the best.
I know. I'm currently reading A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross, which is the second in the Elements of Cadence series. The first is called I wrote Fire Endless again. I will get the first title. My notes just Fire Endless again. But it's the second in the Elements of Cadence series by Rebecca Ross. She also wrote Divine Rivals. That's what, this is actually before Divine Rivals. She wrote this a couple of years ago. It's better.
Ooh.
I didn't love the second book of Divine Rivals. That's being generous. I thought it was not very good. And so far, I've not finished it, but this I am engrossed. It's atmospheric and lyrical, which is not always my cup of tea, but when it's done really well, it's some of my favorite writing. And it's set on a fictitious Scottish island during fake medieval times because it's fantasy. Mm-hmm. And then spirits are meddling in the lives of mortals.
That sounds great.
It's great. I love it. I love everything about it. So hopefully it ends. I bought the book. That's
serious.
Another level.
Yeah.
So hopefully it ends. I've heard nothing but good things about it though. As I was reading reviews. And I really liked the way Divine Rivals started, so I was really disappointed. And so I'm hoping this one just disappoint me as well. Just keeps going. But so far, engrossed. Love them both. Read them back to back, the first and second. I am listening to Love of My Afterlife by Christy Greenwood, which is very British, and it's about a woman who dies.
Okay.
Choking on a hamburger.
Sold. No, I'm kidding.
Goes to her afterlife, meets her afterlife counselor, as one does, and convinces the counselor to let her go back to Earth to find her soulmate. And she has 10 days, and if she does, she can stay on Earth forever. Haven't finished it yet, but very British. I love the slight paranormal of it. Other than that, it's just a straight romance novel. And it was recommended to me by one of our other librarians, so I'm very excited about finishing that one as well.
I love a British audiobook. So
yeah.
That's what I feel I'm gonna have to pick up, is that will get me back in my
something very British.
Yeah, with a good The Husbands, isn't it? I just feel a British almost rom-com in a way.
Yeah.
I just love them. Dolly Alderton.
Yes.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Maybe you'll pick that up and
you'll pick it up.
Finish a book.
Maybe. This is always the time of year though, when I feel with my personal reading, I don't feel pressure to reach a number or anything like that, but I do sometimes be I wanted to I really want to read that before the end of the year.
Yes.
It's on these best lists, and I'm gonna forget about it if I don't read it now, or that kind of vibe. And I think that's also paralyzing me a little bit too, and I shouldn't think that much into it.
And my next book up, once I finish Love of My Afterlife on audiobook, is James by Percival Everett. And I was look at me reading the book.
Look at you.
Look at me. That came out this year. Look at me.
We're gonna read James for our Reading on the Margins in January, my book discussion at Franklin, so that's up next for me too, which also a great segue.
Look at me.
We're going to talk about the internet list right now, all the internet best lists, and it should come as no surprise that James by Percival Everett is on all of them.
All the lists.
Every single one of them. I think my notes just say front runner for all the awards and won them.
Yes.
This is what National Book Award. Mm-hmm. And that has made the most hits, I guess I would say, on all the lists.
On all the lists, yes. Yeah. Consistently is going to be on all of the lists.
Yeah.
Which leads into how do we decide best?
How do we decide best?
And I decide best, as you will learn later in this podcast, by just whatever I feel. And generally not 2024, because I read backlist stuff.
It's okay.
But I think that if we looked into these lists and no one's telling us how they picked.
No, you don't have any idea. And James makes sense because like I said, it's won all the awards, or you see of course the beautiful writing. He's a great author. He's done great work. It's time had come. It was a great book. So people say I'll tell you my review when I read it. But like there are super popular books that don't make the best list that like people love. I feel like The Women by Kristen Hanna is like the first one on that list that was not on any. I mean, probably some.
I'm just like, I of course made a spreadsheet for this podcast, as one does.
I feel like barely.
Like, and I feel like it only made those lists where like Barnes and Noble had like a list for every genre, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot more books.
Or like the Goodreads Reader's Choice.
Yes.
That's another good example, which is kind of not necessarily best of the year, but kind of in a way.
Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking about it. Like, I don't know how they pick their original batch for those picks. But after that, you know, which I don't think is a bad thing, but it's a popularity contest at that point.
Popularity contest. But I think normally with lists, literary fiction is what usually dominates. There were some like genre standouts this year. God of the Woods, I think, being the number one, because that is not full genre, but is definitely more of a mystery than fiction. But mostly it's all just literary fiction. So.
And even for God of the Woods, I think we have it in the fiction section here.
We do. And it is not, like I said, it's not a traditional mystery book.
Yeah.
But I was really proud of myself when I read it, because I was like, oh yeah, look at me reading a genre book. That's not romance, because you know I love romance. And mystery is not my cup of tea normally. So after James is, I would assume, Murder is on your list.
You are correct. Yeah. That is number 2.
Because another one that had a lot of hype, a lot of talk, and I think well-deserved when it comes to that. Because I think the writing in this book is what propelled this one to the top. The story's great, but I think he is a fantastic writer, because I did read Murder. And I think that's why this one is on all the list. Yeah. Even though, we don't know why people chose them. But it was like a quote that I read from a review just said, "It breezes by while knocking you over. It strikes an optimistic note within its fatalism, and it suggests that death might provide the meaning of life. Ultimately, it could leave you in tears of laughter or of sorrow, or most likely both." And I think that's a lovely little description of that book. But yeah, what else you got on that list?
I was just trying to look to see like where on this list we really hit like a genre pick, like a real one. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry, God of the Woods.
It's not. It's fine.
I guess so. The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo.
Book of Love, maybe by Kelly Link. Is that on there at all?
Yes, it is. It's not super high.
It's okay.
Bride by Ellie Hazelwood made a couple of lists, which that's some paranormal romance. But you're right. Literary fiction, literary and nonfiction are going to be way up there. Like Challenger by Adam Higginbotham made a bunch of lists. I
saw Grief is for People by Sloane Crossley made a bunch of nonfiction lists. And I think that I read that one, and I like Sloane Crossley, all of her work. And this one was like particularly powerful, especially if you have a close, I mean, we all have close friends, but if you, it's about grieving the loss of a friend. And it is, it's a well meditated short little read. But I saw that one on a lot. And then, Hanif, like, of course, like he made almost every list I saw too, which is, he wrote There's Always This Year on Basketball and Ascension. Which I'm not even a basketball fan, which that just always says how well, like, that's why his books are so good, because he talks about like beauty and things that he finds beautiful, and that's enough to read about for me. So it is all those like heavy hitters though.
Yes they're gonna make you cry.
Are there any, I'm looking at my list, are there any debuts on this list?
And you're gonna know better than I am. So bad at it.
The only one the first one on my list that come up is Shred Sisters by Betsy Lerner, which is a fiction book just about two sisters, but it was written by, I believe, a literary agent. I think Betsy Lerner is a literary agent, and it's one of those like wrote a book in her 60s, later life. Yeah, she, and publish it then. So that's like the first one on my list that I see that is a debut. Otherwise, these are, well, I guess Martyr Martyrs the debut.
Martyrs the debut.
I just realized that. I was like, wait.
Yeah.
Beep, beep. Another one that I see a lot and that I read so I can talk about it is All Fours by Miranda July.
Yes, that one made a lot of lists.
Which that was also, I was low-key shocked that made the National Book Award shortlist. I
remember you talking about that on a previous podcast.
Because it is just, it's weird. It's good. It's the novel that, quote, blew up 1,000 group chats, unquote. I believe they're selling merch that just says All Fours group chat, like, on it, like hats or like shirts, things like that. But I think because it is about like the creativity and sexual fulfillment of a woman in a perimenopausal age that makes it so quote unquote not controversial but like shocking to people to read. It's not even shocking. I don't know the right word for it. But I definitely think that if you read the flap of the book or the the blurb, and then you get way more when you read that book. So it's great. It's a good one too. But I was just surprised it was on so many lists. I love her writing. She's a great artist. I think she's an artist. Her films, she makes films too. I love her films. So that was one I saw a lot on lists too.
That made the top I think number 6 or something on the. No, it's number 4 on my spreadsheet. So
this was like right down there.
It was right on there. But yeah, I love making the spreadsheet because there are always some standouts that I feel make everyone's list, and then it just nosedives.
Mm-hmm. Like what?
What? I was like, okay, one person like this, which I kind of love in a way though too. And it shows that even from a critic standpoint or a literary standpoint or whatever, after a couple, they're just I don't know, I liked it, and I think that's okay. I think that's great.
That's totally fine.
I love it.
Me too. I feel like critical darling, maybe not received by fans of, is Sally Rooney's Intermezzo. That's on a lot of lists. I'm not saying people disliked it, but I think Sally Rooney fans, it's not the favorite from what I can tell in my book talk, book review circles. But it was on a ton of best of lists, and the critics have nothing but good things to say about that. That's high on my TBR, so I'll let you know.
I've never read a Sally Rooney.
Yeah, I like her. It's different. It's different. I don't know how to describe it. Normal People and Conversation with Friends. Those are the only 2 I've read. So, but yeah, I saw that one show up a lot. But I think that's a good point that critics might receive a book way better than fans.
Yes.
Who are waiting for her next book or the next book.
And you would, so this is kind of a question as well as a comment of Normal People, the TV show also blew it up.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think
it's a great show.
Yeah. But I'm wondering if people really liked Normal People and don't necessarily want to read everything Sally Rooney's done.
Yeah. It takes you a minute to get into her groove. She doesn't use quote, she doesn't, you can sometimes not tell when the dialogue is. Once you get it, it's fine. It's fine. But I'm gonna tell you what number is Colored Television by Danzy Senna on your list at all?
Yes, it is up there with All Fours.
Okay, so it's high.
It's high. So just to give you guys an idea, so James is on, so I pulled 8 lists. James is on 6 of them. Martyr is on 5, as is The God of the Woods. And then All Fours, Colored Television, The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo are on 3.
I love that.
And then it kind of takes a nosedive.
Just it's wherever.
Wherever, one here, one there. Those are kind of the top ones.
Fun fact, Danzy Senna is married to Percival Everett. So I love that. They both have in the top 5 top books of the year. I liked Colored Television too. It's a funny, biting book about the eternal conflict between making art and selling art. And I think one of the quotes, it might be on the book Concierge, or I think NPR now calls it Best Books of 24. They don't call it the Concierge anymore, but I think one of the quotes was it's sitting around a dinner party, 3 bottles of wine in, and just listening to these people talk about their wild lives. So it deserves its spot too, I think. Wasn't one of my top 10, but it deserves its spot. Is there any other nonfiction that I'm thinking? What was it? When does nonfiction hit on your list? Like, I feel like there's not a book, there's not a nonfiction book that everyone agrees on.
No, not like
that's like the best of the year.
Previous years. A couple that, again, they made it onto like 2 lists. Mm-hmm. And maybe a couple more, because I didn't pull everything from Barnes & Noble because it was extensive.
It's a lot, yeah.
But Challenger, again, by Adam Higginbotham, about the explosion of the Challenger. By the Fire We Carry, by Rebecca Nagel, which is about Native American lands. Mm-hmm. And then so there really wasn't a ton, unless you were looking at specific nonfiction lists.
Yeah, or like categories.
Yeah, like
like
a
memoirs or whatever.
Something. The just kind of general list did not have a lot of nonfiction on it this year. I did notice that. I also personally, and I read a bit of nonfiction, read a lot less nonfiction this year than I normally do, because I noticed I hadn't read a lot of the books that did make the list.
One that I saw come up a decent amount and that I read as well was Q the Sun by Emily Nussbaum, which is like the invention of reality TV. Excellent one. And then the National Book Award winner, which for nonfiction, which I was not, I'm not familiar, honestly, I wasn't familiar with it before the long list, and then the short list, which is called Soldiers and Kings, Survival and Hope in a World of Human Smuggling.
And I wasn't familiar with that one either. And usually I'm at least like aware of the nonfiction coming through. Mm-hmm. Even the like Goodreads list this year pick, I usually have like 2 or 3 on there that I've read, and I didn't have a single one.
Mm-hmm. I think Q the Sun and There's Always this year, maybe we're on there.
Yes.
So, wow, did I read more popular nonfiction than you did this year?
I think you did.
And like those are like the 2 nonfiction books I read. That's one of my like reading goals of the next year, is to just get back into reading a little more nonfiction. We'll see how it goes. I don't think, is there any other books? I am going to shout out books, a few that I saw on a lot of lists, which is Margot's Got Money Troubles.
Yeah, they made a couple lists.
By Ruby Carr. I loved that book. On its surface level, it looks like it's about a college girl who gets knocked up by her English professor and starts an OnlyFans to like survive, but it is like so much more than that. It is such a great character study. They're already, I believe, filming either a TV series or a movie.
Mm-hmm, they are.
And I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I've gone and put books on their book on, I think The Knockout Queen by Ruby Carr is a backlist book that I definitely want to check out. That one I wanted to shout out. And then I did see The Husbands a couple times, and I really enjoyed that book for what it was.
I think it wasn't what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And so
which is fine.
Same with The Ministry of Time made a lot of lists.
That did make a lot of lists too.
Which again was not the book I wanted it to be. So that's on me.
I don't think that was a book a lot of people wanted it to be. Not that it's bad. I'm not saying don't read it. It's just very... I think the blurb does not do justice to what the book is, and I would argue The Husbands was similar. I think you're right. That makes sense.
Yes.
I see.
Not quite as bad. I will say that like The Husbands... Actually, I think I wanted something more from it than it was like. I think that was the opposite. It told me exactly what it was, and I wanted something else,
deeper,
or whatever, or a twist that wasn't there, and that sort of thing. It just was like, no, this is. I told you what the book was, Sarah. Where The Ministry of Time was like, ha, didn't tell you.
It's a what?
What?
Excuse me. Do we want to talk really quickly about what our patrons?
Yeah.
The library will come out with our like top lists you'll see on social media and on the blog, but just like a few of we're just talking about physical circulation items that were high. What is the highest physically circulating item at...
You'll never guess because, well, I mean, Jess will guess because I told her.
Yeah.
But you, the listener, will never guess because it's not a book.
It's not a book.
It is our in-house laptops.
Yeah. The highest physical circ. And then not far behind this, if you see our top list that we put out every month, it's of no surprise to anyone that The Women by Kristen Hanna is next.
And like by quite a bit.
Yes, like by a lot.
By like 2... From the next book on our list, which is Funny Story by Emily Henry, it has 200 more circs.
That's so much.
I know.
That's so much. It's wild.
I do know of people, because we have those hot titles, no holds, where like you can't put a hold on it. If you're lucky, it's there at Franklin and Central. And we, at least at Central, a lot of patrons rolling in who had never been to Central looking for the women because they saw.
They're like, give it.
I heard it's here.
Other non-book items that make the list are wireless hotspots,
and it would be higher if we had more hotspots. That's just the insane amount of circ for hotspots.
Yeah. What else we got that's not about?
I loved that Oppenheimer, the DVD, made our top 10.
It did.
Which shows that, like, we're still circling DVDs here, guys.
We are. You check out DVDs from there. We have so many DVDs here. More than you would think.
Yes.
I'm always surprised by what is still being put out on DVD. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's not the media way I consume media. I sure used to. It's just not. I don't even have a DVD player anymore. I should, because I still do own DVDs. But I love that is like such a, like, it's like a free way to watch like this blockbuster movie, and I just don't think about it that way. Like, I'm always just like, I'm paying for the streaming services. But like, I wouldn't have to.
No.
And to be fair, not all things are on DVD. That we struggle with that at the library a lot. That like not all like streaming shows are on DVD, but
no.
But we won't talk too much more about the high circulated. We'll let the full list come out
here in the next couple of weeks.
But I just thought it was really interesting to kind of see what you guys were.
Question for you, since you're in a different building than me. How many laptops do you guys have?
We don't have laptops.
Oh my gosh! So that shows that 990 times laptop circed.
And not at like the second biggest branch. None of those were. I like how I said the second biggest branch.
She's guess who works at the first? No,
ouch. No, it's definitely it will happen for us. Just like it will happen. I love that. That's just like kind of the way we're going.
Moving towards.
So, but yeah, we don't.
And we only have like 4. It's not like we're circling like lots and lots of them. And for a while we had 1. As we were waiting for them to return to us. So it shows how often they get checked out. But yeah, so that's a little snippet of what you'll see later with our top 10 lists.
Now it's time. We're not going to tell you our top 10, even though they do exist. I did write a top 10 list.
Me too.
But we're going to do our top 3. I am going to sneak in an audiobook pick because I had an audiobook I loved so much this year. Sarah, you wanna get us started? What's one of your favorite books of the year?
So this one came in. This was the last the previous audiobook I read. So coming in right at the wire. Pandora's Jar by Natalie Haynes.
Oh yeah,
which is a 2020 book. It's nonfiction, and it's about the women in Greek mythology specifically. Natalie Haynes is a classicist and an amazing storyteller. I absolutely adored this book from the moment I picked it up. This is also when I was like sans car, so I was taking the bus. So I was like walking to and from work, listening to her. She got me through 3 weeks of no car.
Bless her.
But it takes a look at the women in Greek mythology that are generally kind of like shunted to the sides of the story, or in her opinion, sometimes misinterpreted. And it was really interesting because it talked to about the difference between like her as a classicist reading like ancient works compared to like what most popular media has pulled from is much newer. I mean, newer might be like 15, 16, 1700s
still,
but compared to like BC time. But also, so very interesting as someone who has got her degree in history. Like I loved listening to her like talk about the differences in like times that you're pulling from. Also, she read the audiobook, and I'm not always like an author for audiobook, but she sounds just like Hannah Waddingham, which if you don't know who that is, she's Rebecca from Ted Lasso. And I just was like, it was just this like warm, posh British accent telling me about like Greek women.
That sounds lovely.
And she also wrote 1,000 Ships, which has been on my TBR forever.
So
bumping it up. If you liked Mythos by Stephen Fry, this is better.
I love that.
So read this one instead. So that was my first of my top 3 picks.
I am going to talk about Headshot by Rita Bullwinkle. This was a long listed for the Booker Prize, but it's like kind of a hard book to describe, but when I look back on like all my favorites of the year, I just keep coming back to this one. I keep thinking about how it was written and what it did in such a short amount of time is just masterful work. But also, like, it's a short novel about girls boxing. Like, what? Like, I was very, like...
all of your sports books.
I know. But it's, like... It's just not your typical girlhood narrative, but it is a girlhood narrative. It's got, like, some of that lore, but it's just, like, this taut look at what drives girls to fight. And the character work is just incredible, especially because it's so short. It kind of talks about how the endless capacity to fight is paired with the endless capacity to work together. Like, they butt up against each other. And so, like, you have these girls in the boxing ring, but you get their backstory while they're fighting, briefly and succinctly. It's just, like, nothing I've ever read. And it's, like, it uses a boxing match as a moment of distillation for everything. Like, it reminds you how, like, fleeting girlhood can be. And I don't know, it was just I keep thinking about it. So if I keep thinking about it, and there's other books I certainly don't keep thinking about that I gave 5 stars, I think it made the list for sure of one of my top 3. So I really enjoyed it. And it does not have a long wait list. Like, if you just, for the record, I just put it on display at Franklin, so I know there's available copy as we're recording, which will not be available probably when you listen to this podcast. But whatever, I'm just saying there's not a huge wait list for it. So at least the physical copy. So yeah, I really liked that one.
Was awesome.
It was a surprise.
Yeah. My second pick is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangyu Mandana. This, I feel like it came out in 2022 and was very popular, and is still very popular. This one you cannot get right now, is completely checked out. I think it made my list for a number of reasons, but one was it was a book I didn't know a whole lot about going into. It has a cutesy cover, and everyone was talking about it, so I was like, okay. But it's cozy, it's found family, it ticks like every box ever. It's funny, and has a little bit of romance in it as well. So it just ticked every Sarah box that she wants when she reads, as she talks about herself in third person.
I like the magical system in that book too.
Yes.
I don't know a better way to put it, but like how, you know, the main magical storyline, I liked that. I could is not believable. I don't know the right word, but I like that book a lot too. I read it a while ago, and I believe a sequel is coming out in maybe January, February, March, early next year.
I'm already on hold for it on Libby, and I'm
same.
And I swear I got there early, and I think I'm still like 20th in line for it.
Yeah.
But yes, it's already available to be put on hold on Libby. So, and it has been for a few months. So I know it's early 2025. So yeah, that's my number 2 pick.
I'm gonna go with top 3 fave, God of the Woods by Liz Moore. Just it was one of the best books I read this year. It just, you know, it starts in 1975 when a camp counselor finds an empty bunk, and they start searching for this counselor, and then it just or this missing camper, and the book just unravels from there. A much bigger mystery, much deeper secrets. It is over 500 pages, and I'm not a big book reader normally, but every page of this book was worth it to me. It's like how I saw Wicked recently, and everyone was like, it's so, you know, it's like a 3-hour movie, and for me it just flew by. I was like, I liked it so much, it just flew by.
I'm gonna see it on Friday.
Like, you know what I mean though? I didn't even, like, I was just so immersed in this book and the story, and it's such an authentic like vision of like youth and like young friendships and family secrets. I do love rich people being terrible, and that definitely exists in this book. Believe the hype. I think this book slaps. I loved it. So yeah, God of the Woods by Liz Moore. That's like the one that hit all the lists that I do agree with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. My last one did hit some lists. I had to pick like a straight romance. It actually came out in 2024, which is so small a portion of what I read. But it's You Should Be So Lucky by Cat Sebastian. It's the second in a romance series. But it is a queer romance set in 1960s New York City. And it's between Eddie, who is a baseball player, and a complete golden retriever cinnamon roll character, who gets traded to a new team, and he stops being able to hit the ball, for those who aren't into sports.
It's a very sports book podcast.
I know, look at us. But he ends up having meeting Mark, who's a reporter who is normally like in the art section, and gets roped into doing an expose on this baseball player. Because the poor man lost his partner about a year ago, and all he wants to do is sit and mourn in his house, and his editor is like, nope, you got to get out there. So anyway, it's just this lovely romance set in the 60s with the cinnamon roll character, which I love. And it's so well written, and I think it does a great job of finding romance, especially in an era in which they couldn't be out about their romance. And it's beautiful, and I laughed out loud, and it's just a lovely, lovely series. I would recommend both. But this is one I read this year.
That one is like, you know what, that might break my audiobook streak. I feel like that could be, I feel like it's been on my TBR for a long time. I've only read like Cat Sebastian's maybe like Regency. I haven't read a lot.
Yes. Just Regency as well.
I haven't read a lot.
I would say these are better.
Yeah.
Than her her like Regency historicals.
Yeah, and that sounds like everything I like in a like, you know, characterization, like that, like deep, like just the feeling, like not just vibes, but like deep feelings. Deep feelings,
yes. And that's definitely, I would say both. So the second one, You Should Be So Lucky, and the first one's called We Could Be So Good. I highly recommend both. They're set in the same universe, and all that. But yes, deep feelings in this one versus just vibes as well. Yeah.
Wow, I'm going to talk about this book for like the 700th time on this podcast. Get ready! Number one book of the year for me, Beautyland by Helene Marie Bertino. New York Times called this book funny, sad, and I think that's a really great way to characterize this book. It just really reconnects you to humanity's tenderness through the eyes of someone who thinks they're an alien, which you can consider a metaphor, you can consider it real, you can read it how you want, but Adina, the main character, looks like any other girl, but she believes she's a member of the alien race sent to report back to her home planet by fax machine on the Earthlings who surround her, which again sounds fantastical, but the writing in this doesn't ever take it in a place where you're like, okay, really? You're just like, yeah, sure, I believe this. This girl finds a fax machine in the dumpster and thinks she needs to report back to her home planet. Her observations, I wrote a couple of quotes down because like her observations about life are just like so poignant. Like, human beings don't like when other humans seem happy, or death's biggest surprise is that it does not end the conversation. There's just like lots of little quick reads about people like that I just loved so much. And I think that the world is like always pushing you to wonder if there's a positive future for humanity. At least that's how I feel right now. And this book like does remind me that there is kindness and there is compassion and there is gentleness, and that humanity at its core can be good. It's very plain spoken, it's profound. It really is just what it means to be a person living a painfully brief life among 8.2 billion other souls just like it. So yeah, I can't recommend. I've listened to it and read it. I can't recommend this book enough. It is beautiful. So I loved it. I'm gonna just a real quick audiobook recommendation because this was so close to making my top 3, which is Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. It is the audiobook of the year for me. It is so cinematic. It deserved nothing less than a full cast audio, which that is what it got. I laughed so much. I followed the story. It was great. I loved it. So I am going to throw that in there. It was a delight. All right. Book bulletin time.
It's time for the book bulletin.
Okay, what do we got? Oh, we're going to talk a lot about things that make us angry for this book bulletin. Not a lot, but...
Before we get into it, you were talking about earlier, like, that maybe... life is out to get us, or it's beautiful, depending on Beautyland. And it just reminded me of in Pandora's Jar, there's this thing called Medea effect. Have you heard of this? That the Earth is actively trying to kill humanity. Like, there's a theory out there. Anyway, just to lead us into this book bulletin, just something you should look up if you like to Google things. Medea effect.
The Medea effect. We'll be doing that when I get back to my desk.
Learn that in Pandora's Jar. But yeah, so we're going to talk a lot about AI, unfortunately.
I think that's just what's in the news.
Yeah.
I think that's what's dominating besides best of the year list. That's what's dominating.
Yes. The big thing I think that we should talk about is that there is a new, they call themselves publishers, but they are a tech company.
They're tech bros.
They're tech bros, called Spines, which aims to quote unquote disrupt the publishing industry by using AI to publish 8,000 books in 2025 alone. Bookseller wrote this great article that you should definitely read if you can. This just makes me really upset for the entire article, because these 4 tech bros believe that they can disrupt and change the publishing landscape by just like mass producing.
Yeah, it's not... I don't love it. Like, it says you can take a manuscript to a published title in 3 weeks, like, for a fee with their little AI-generated whatever, writing.
The big quote that... I literally wrote WTF at one point. But that's not even the quote I'm going to pull from right now. One of the people they interviewed from the company said, I realized I had 2 options, either to be made irrelevant by AI or to lead this opportunity to the world. Those were your 2 options?
That was it?
That was it.
Dude. I hate it. And we've talked about this before. I do think AI has a place. I'm not like anti-artificial intelligence. That's not it. But when it comes to creativity, I sure the FM. Like, I'm not for it. Like, I think this is an example of what it's going to do to creative industries, and I don't like it at all.
He also at one point calls writing a hobby for authors.
It's so bad. It's not funny. That's so bad.
Most people publish a book not because they want to make a living from that. It's their hobby. Direct quote.
Yikes.
So anyway, it made me very upset. I have lots of notes to go with this. We could probably have a whole conversation about how much I hate it.
And maybe, podcast topic for 2025.
Yeah.
We'll just really get into AI.
Yeah, you're right. And like, I've read other things about AI, like translating for like languages that we don't have, the translators for, or that's not as popular generally, so it wouldn't make as much money because it is still a business. So there is some good parts of AI. This is not it.
This is not it. There was a HarperCollins deal too. They made a deal with an artificial intelligence company,
an unnamed.
Yep, which they did not. Yeah, they did not say who. But basically to mine the nonfiction, I believe.
Yes.
Their nonfiction work to make AI smarter. It is an opt. It says you can opt out and opt in, which is hard. That you have to just believe your publisher, because there's no other way to like go. But they do pay you. They do pay you $2,500 for the entirety of your intellectual property, basically.
Yep.
I think the publisher gets a cut too.
Well, and also I think it said if you have an illustrator involved as well, like it's split in half. Yeah. So there's like they're both compensated equal. The $2,500. Yeah.
One of the authors quoted in that, I read a Literary Hub article that we pulled for this, is basically just like, it's insulting. Like, it's an insultingly small amount for like what you're asking, and also like go away.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll talk about AI more as it's not going away, and it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out in 2025. And
there was one other article. It said a whole lot of nothing, and so I can't tell if it's AI or not. But Cornerstone Publishing Company is creating a new imprint called Evermore, which is data-driven romance imprint. And I read that entire article twice, and I don't know what that means.
Data-driven romance.
Yes. They were like, we're going to be community-focused. And I was like, that's not data-driven then.
No.
So anyway, I'll come back with more if there is more
on
that one as well, because I'm not convinced data-driven doesn't also mean AI.
Sigh. The only non-AI related news that's kind of is that the Goodreads Choice Awards did not have middle grade categories this year for their award.
Yeah, which got some backlash. Rick Riordan posted on Threads that he's like, I know I said I shouldn't be have all my books on there this year, but I didn't mean get rid of it.
Yeah, hey, I just don't understand, and this is a much bigger topic. We have touched on it. Why are we erasing middle grade fiction? It is the bread and butter for it's weird to me. I know we have the early readers, we have early chapter books, and then it's just YA. It's middle grade is huge, but no one in publishing, and it's just not paid attention to anymore. No. It's weird, and I don't like it.
No, it's
middle grade books are great.
Yeah, so they should bring it back. Yeah,
I mean, that's all we got for today, so thanks for listening.
We'll see you in 2025.
See you next year.